Hey everyone, shalom, shalom. This is Jen from the Ezekiel Effect, and I just was thinking about and kind of meditating on some things that the Lord was sharing with me recently, and He's been taking me through a study of Isaiah. I'm doing it with my small group, and one of the things He's teaching us about is about not striving and about just waiting on Him and allowing Him to show up and get the glory and be the one showing His power instead of trying to make something happen. And I think for most of us, if we're being honest, we can relate to the fact that waiting for something, waiting on someone is not easy. Waiting for something to happen, being in the time of waiting, it's really difficult. I know it has always been difficult for me. The interesting thing is that during the time of waiting, God does His best work with us. Oftentimes He's developing character. He's trying to, if we allow Him to, He would like to remove things that have hindered us from our relationship with Him and our closeness with Him. He's oftentimes trying to teach us things that we need to know for the future. He's building skills in us. Something that I've always said to my kids, when you're working at a job or you're doing something that you may not be thrilled about, it doesn't always seem pleasant at the time, I always tell them that's God's training ground. That's what He's building up your tenacity. He's helping you learn to interact with people. Whatever the skills are, God uses every opportunity and nothing is wasted. So today I wanted to read a couple Psalms to you. The Lord had led me to Psalm 62, and I'm just going to read probably the first 8 verses. But this theme here about how He is worth the wait. And the title of this psalm is called A Calm Resolve to Wait for the Salvation of the Lord. And this is David who's writing this psalm. And he says, "Truly my soul silently waits for God. From Him comes my salvation. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be greatly moved. How long will you attack a man? You shall be slain, all of you. Like a leaning wall and a tottering fence, they only consult to cast Him down from His high position. They delight in lies. They bless with their mouth, but they curse inwardly." Now this next part of the verse is really important. "My soul waits silently for God alone, for my expectation is from Him. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be moved." So the word "is" in each of those sentences is emphasized. And they're talking about the wraparound presence of God, basically, being wrapped up in God. My soul waits silently for God alone, for my expectation is from Him. So it's like God saying, this is a guarantee. He only is my rock and my salvation. This is David saying, yeah, God's telling him He is the rock and the salvation. He is my defense. So we can be sure when David writes this that these are part of God's promises. He is our rock and our salvation. He is our defense. And it says, I shall not be moved. In God is my salvation and my glory. The rock of my strength and my refuge is in God. So he's emphasizing again that we can just go to God to protect us. He's the refuge and He's our strength and He's our rock. So lots of qualities about God here. Trust in Him at all times, you people. Pour out your heart before Him. God is a refuge for us. And then it says Selah. So that means pause. So this is a great place to pause, just like David suggests, because there's so much that's being said here. And, we could obviously dig into this and it would take a really long time. But for simplicity's sake and for the purposes of talking about not striving and just getting into the presence of God a little bit more every day, when we can know that God has promised us and guaranteed that He is our rock and He's a solid presence and He is our salvation, He is our defense. He's not going to be moved. These are all really reassuring promises, right? These are reassuring things, especially living in the world that we live in and, having the daily challenges that we have. So knowing that we can get into the presence of God is really, really good. And knowing when we get there, when we come to him, because he's always waiting for us, it's just whether we're willing to turn our attention to him. When we do that, then he opens his arms and he welcomes us in, and he just delights in us. He wants to be with us. So that to me is really reassuring. That's very hope-filled. That's comforting, because we're all going through some difficult things. So also, I think when we stop the striving and we just rest into the Lord, it just brings us greater peace, and Jesus is the Prince of Peace. And so when we intentionally say, I'm going to spend time with Jesus, I'm going to spend time with God every day, no matter what the amount of time is, God delights in us. And the more we spend time with him, the more we want to be with him, the more we desire his presence and his comfort and his shalom and his peace and his rest that he gives us. And so it's not about how much we're getting done, but it's kind of like, well, how much time did I spend time with God? And then he will actually give us the time back, and we'll feel like we have more time to get other things done that we didn't think that we did, as opposed to when we're moving a million miles an hour, then it often seems like we can't get things done. But starting off the day on a very faith-filled note by spending time with the Lord, being in his presence, just hungering for God and really going after that presence is where it's at. And I'm going to do another video here in a little bit that talks about basically, using some of our 5 senses to do that. And there's different ways that we can get into the presence of God. But one thing that I like to use is I have a whole bunch of devotionals. I don't have time probably in the whole month to read all the things I want to read, but I do have several that I rotate through, and just a daily devotional can really kind of set my mind in a right place, and just having daily prayer time, and just maybe you're using music, or maybe it's very quiet, maybe you're out in nature, maybe you're walking, it doesn't have to be where you're laying down. You could spend time with God being in your car. You could be at work. You may just have your headphones on. You could go into a quiet space at work. So it really doesn't matter where you are. The presence of God goes with us everywhere. It's like if we're following the cloud, in Genesis, how they were talking, in Exodus, how they were talking about, Moses followed the cloud. That's the presence of God. And so if we keep just following the cloud, if we just keep saying, Lord, I want to encounter you, I want to be with you, he will always meet us right where we are. So that's the exciting part. And so I hope that you were encouraged today. And if you like what I'm saying and you want to just hit the subscribe button and hit the like, that would be really awesome. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of March. So I'm believing God that he's going to bring these people to hear just some really encouraging messages that he wants to get out. So be blessed today. Until next time, shalom, shalom.